The Stone Age did not end because of the lack of stones, and the age of oil will end before the oil ends, former Saudi oil minister Ahmed Zaki Yamani said in the 70s, and since that time it has become a compass that guides experts and decision makers when it comes to energy issues globally. The famous saying is about to appear in a realistic picture regardless of the adoption of the issue of climate change and its consequences on the era of the use of fossil fuels, as the latest scientific and geological estimates, regarding the availability and affordability of oil, indicate that the world will soon have to reduce its consumption as a source. Despite this, voices are rising daily saying that the world cannot move towards running out of oil, but the expected increase in demand threatens the possibilities of relying on it as a vital and necessary source of energy. The fourth energy transition and its consequences for the oil age. The history of the era of energy transition is long and extends to the 19th century, where the first energy transition when coal replaced biomass in the second half of the 19th century, and the second transition was linked to the need to expand the use of oil, from 3% in 1915 to 45% in 1975, and the third transition it came with the widespread emergence and expansion of the uses of natural gas, whose participation rate increased from 3% in 1930 to more than 50% in 2020. Therefore, the fourth transition of energy by expanding the use of various sources of renewable energy will take place, as happened in past eras, at the expense of the energy sources that preceded it, and on top of those traditional energy sources, or what is known as fossil energy, coal, oil, and gas. In the first place on the calculation of coal and oil, as evidenced by the expansion and replacement processes of the automobile industry, which uses the electric motor instead of the internal combustion engine that most cars still use today. And this transformation process will expand significantly in the future, and all expectations indicate that the share of cars that depend on renewable energy in generating electricity will reach by 2040 more than 45% of the total used cars, which is a serious challenge for the oil industry, if we take into account consider that the various means of transportation are at the top of global energy consumers. Relationship between different energy sources. The relationship between the various sources of energy, renewable and non-renewable, is an integrative relationship, and it is not logical or wise for the so-called attempts to marginalize or neutralize any of these sources under any pretext. Rather, it is an urgent necessity for everyone, especially decision makers in the energy industry, to work on raising the efficiency of production and consumption for all different energy sources. The energy mix has become one of the basic necessities to preserve the vibrant sources of them and to maintain global and future energy security, which is surrounded by many risks, the most important of which is the scarcity of energy and the cost of its production and its catastrophic repercussions. His hopes for responsibility and commitment towards providing energy in a safe and sustainable manner. Global trend towards a clean world. Reaching net zero emissions in different periods of time is the declared global trend, but it is confirmed by many countries of the world from time to time. However, it requires much more effort and the need for everyone to unite and earnestly strive to achieve this. The transition to renewable energy is very important, but it must take place according to a thoughtful and practical time frame that is consistent with the issue of the global demand for energy on a daily basis, and the growth of this steady demand, so that the world does not face a crisis in the future, or more precisely, a huge gap that cannot be closed between the two processes, supply and demand, an irreversible hernia. The need to continue pumping investments in the field of energy. The global oil markets witnessed many changes, and also faced many challenges during the past 2 years due to the corona pandemic, as the demand for oil and its derivatives decreased in record terms due to the total or partial ban imposed by most countries. The closure of many economic activities, and travel restrictions, which in turn led to a decrease in demand for jet fuel and others, are among the factors that plunged oil prices to historical levels. There are many contradictory voices, which began to rise calling for fossil fuel producers, led by decision-makers in the oil industry, to reduce production when prices collapsed under the pretext of protecting the environment from pollution, and from the same platform calling for an increase in production when prices rose. It is worth noting that they ignore the issue of climate change and the environment when the issue touches on their personal interests and the interests of their people, and this is neither new nor surprising, and historical evidence is abundant in this regard. It is important that those who are interested and those who demand the necessity of undermining the upstream industry, especially the oil industry, are aware that the technical and natural conditions that affect the supply of fossil fuels also apply to the renewable energy industry, such as solar, nuclear, wind energy and others. Accordingly, the process of diversifying energy sources is the best strategic option to protect global energy security, not by undermining the upstream industry and stopping new investments in exploration activities. The relationship between energy sources is an integrative one, and the reality of this